Welcome back to AEW Change the World. For those that missed it during Double or Nothing, AEW announced their second event, also titled Change the World. To promote this show, a second Jacksonville rally was announced, to be again hosted by Conrad Thompson and Alex Marvez. As they welcome fans to the event, the duo were interrupted by serial interrupter Don Callis. With a relationship between AEW and Impact Wrestling confirmed at Double or Nothing, Don Callis decided to join the rally, promoting the Impact presence at Change the World. Callis added that his representatives will be here later in the night, ready to make their impact on AEW. Following that opening, Cody and the Young Bucks were brought out, reflecting on the success of AEW's first event. Looking to address the elephant in the room, Cody invited Marty Scurll to join his fellow Elite members on the stage. Both men put down what happened at Double or Nothing, where Marty beat Cody in just 1 minute to a simple misunderstanding, agreeing there would be no hard feelings going forward. The Young Bucks were happy with this, but as Cody and Marty Scurll shook hands, the American Nightmare's demeanour seemed to change. Cody then told Marty Scurll that to change the world, he would face Pac. Cody would then crack a smile, alleviating the tension and turn the handshake into a hug with the villain. All appeared well within the Elite. Speaking of Pac, suggestions had been made that following Double or Nothing, he and Kenny Omega were in pole position to compete in the first ever AEW Championship match. The rumour mill suggested that the match was set to take place at the event after Change the World, but Hangman Page looked to alter this course. Adding to the Elite presence at the rally, Page said that Double or Nothing was set to be his moment, and he came so close to defeating Pac. He wanted another opportunity to prove himself, but was told they had just confirmed Pac's match for Change the World. This gave Hangman another idea, saying that if he couldn't prove he was more deserving a shot than Pac, then he wanted Kenny Omega. Feeling that he was the Elite member most deserving of an AEW Championship match, Hangman requested a match against the man who stood tall at the end of Double or Nothing. Cody and the Young Bucks couldn't promise anything, suggesting instead that Hangman speak directly to Kenny Omega, who would appear later in the rally. Moving on from the Elite Heavy opening, attention turned to the female members of the AEW roster, with Britt Baker discussing her decisive debut victory. With her sights also set on becoming an AEW champion, she announced one of the biggest matches of her career, confirmed she would face Aja Kong at Change the World. Following a video package from Kong, who defeated Yuka Sakazaki at Double or Nothing, Nyla Rose came out to confront Britt Baker. Having defeated Kylie Ray in her own AEW debut, Nyla Rose announced her second match against Yuka Sakazaki while making it clear she too had her eyes on the AEW title picture. Later in the press conference, Sadie Gibbs would be introduced by Brandy Rhodes, confirming her Change the World debut up against the aforementioned Kylie Ray. As Conrad, Alex Marvez and Don Callis looked to move the show along, a video message was received from MJF. Claiming that he had refused to come back to Jacksonville, MJF said that it was going to take a hell of a lot of money to bring him back for Change the World. Speaking of the show's name, MJF suggested that the world didn't need to change because, for him at least, the world is working exactly how it should be. Another of Double or Nothing's winners was Sammy Guevara, who had made it clear that he was ready to face anybody at AEW Change the World. His opponent made his presence known shortly after, with Guevara v Phoenix being confirmed for the event. While the exchange was fairly brief, the appearance of Phoenix resulted in the appearance of Chris Jericho. Confronting one half of the Lucha Bros, Chris Jericho followed up a series of tweets continuing to disrespect the lineage of Phoenix and his brother. Phoenix was capable of handling himself, but when Chris Jericho shoved him, Pentagon made his way to the stage. Confronting Chris Jericho, Penta made it clear he would show zero miedo when faced with the legendary figure. Coming off the back of a defeat at Double or Nothing, Chris Jericho felt he had a lot to prove and told Pentagon that the only time he was ever relevant was when Chris Jericho dressed up as him at All In. That was also, according to Chris, the biggest reaction Penta would ever receive. Understandably, Pentagon had been fired up by Chris Jericho, and when he was slapped in the face by his adversary, things threatened to get out of control. Somehow, Penta kept his cool. Once again raising his hand, displaying Zero Miedo, Pentagon's ability to maintain his composure frustrated Chris Jericho, who said that anybody could do what Pentagon does. Jericho vowed to show everybody that nobody can do what Chris Jericho does when he destroyed the myth of Pentagon at Change the World. Returning to the stage, Don Callis spoke to Chris Jericho, coming between Pentagon and his Change the World opponent. Thompson and Marvez tentatively returned to the stage once it was clear that there would be no further physical interactions. This allowed Callis time to talk about the Impact presence that Changed the World, adding that while he hadn't heard from the guys all day, he was sure they'd make it to the rally eventually. Three men who had made it to the rally, but were in the worst town they'd ever been in, were SoCal Uncensored, The trio, who were among the first announced signings to the company, spoke about their victory over the OWE representatives looking ahead to their next challenge. This came from an unlikely source as Sonny Kiss made his way to the stage. SoCal Uncensored asked what part of trio Sonny Kiss didn't understand, but he said he wasn't coming to change the world alone. In fact, he was bringing 2 friends with him. 2 best friends. This brought out Chuck Taylor and Trent, who would team with Sonny Kiss against Daniels, Kazarian and Scorpio Sky at the upcoming event. It would then be time for the big finale, with Kenny Omega addressing his victory in the main event of Double or Nothing. As he turned to the Change the World tagline, Hangman Page followed up his challenge from earlier, talking directly to Kenny. Page said that Double or Nothing was going to be his big night, but he fell short by the smallest margin. Hangman added that if AEW are truly going to change the world, then the established order needs to be disrupted. Double or Nothing saw Kenny Omega maintain his position at the very top level of pro wrestling, seemingly securing himself in the first AEW Championship match. Hangman had no doubts that Omega deserved every bit of attention and praise he was receiving, but he wanted to prove himself against the best. Page explained that if he could beat Kenny Omega at Change the World, he'd show everybody that he deserved that shot. Kenny Omega agreed, telling Hangman Page that he would face him at Change the World. Not only that, but in the spirit of the event's name, if Hangman could beat him, Kenny would officially endorse Page as the man to take place in the first ever AEW Championship match. With a handshake to seal the deal, the main event of Change the World was set. With a satisfying conclusion to the rally, Cody and the Young Bucks came out and put over the 2 men who would main event their next event. As Page and Omega left the stage, Cody realised something. Turned to the Young Bucks, Cody pointed out that in putting the rest of the card together, they'd forgotten to book themselves. Playing up the idea, the Young Bucks joked that they knew they were forgetting something, leading to the final part of the rally. While they didn't make their way out through the entranceway like everybody else, Impact's representatives had finally made it to the rally. Refusing to come to the stage, Sami Callihan's OVE each made their way through a different part of the crowd. Sami Callihan said that for years, OVE have been trying to change the world, and they intend to do just that at July's AEW event. Callihan made it clear that OVE weren't there fighting for AEW, and they weren't there fighting for Impact Wrestling. OVE were fighting for themselves, and they were fighting for Ohio. The Impact Wrestling presence that Don Callis had promised earlier in the night were ready to make their impact on All Elite Wrestling. As Sami Callihan explained, at Change the World, OVE didn't just stand for Ohio versus everybody, it stood for Ohio versus Elite.